Welcome. As a visitor to this territory and as the program head for media studies at the University of Guelph-Humber, I want to acknowledge and honor the Indigenous nations and Indigenous peoples that have lived and passed through these lands. We recognize the land on which we gather today has been and still is the traditional territory of several Indigenous nations, including the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Wyandot, the Métis, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Let us remember, as stewards, we must care not only for one another, but we must also care for the animals, the birds, the insects, the plants, and the land. We are grateful for the opportunity to celebrate together on this land. Miigwech. Thank you. Let us all take a few moments for personal reflection and thanks. We are fortunate to live in a country where, relative to so much of the world, we enjoy freedoms, security, and prosperity that many others do not have. Therefore, I ask that we respect the various spiritual and faith traditions represented in this room with a short period of silence to mark the opening of this convocation ceremony. Thank you.
I officially declare the opening of this convocation ceremony. Please be seated.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is George Bragas. I'm the Associate Vice Provost Academic at the University of Guelph-Humber, and I have the honor today to be among those who are greeting you to our convocation for the class of 2022. So, Chancellor Chambers, Senior Vice President Antonacci, Dean Sheldrick, faculty, staff, parents, family, friends, and of course, graduands. Welcome to the convocation for the class of 2022. We are here and we are in person. This is our first in-person convocation in 3 years, and I could not be happier to see all of you live in the audience rather than as a frame within my computer screen. It is so wonderful to instead greet you today in the physically non-distant way that human beings have expressed their social nature from time immemorial. Needless to say, the last several years have been unprecedented. But members of the class of 2022, you have all successfully navigated the multitude of obstacles and challenges that the pandemic threw in front of you. Part of the significance of this event is to recognize the unique sacrifices you've made in reaching this point. Sacrifices that none of us on this podium had to make when we were completing our university studies. Now, while we cannot overlook how the pandemic impacted your experience, we should not let the pandemic make us forget what your accomplishment as university graduates essentially represents. One of the primary missions of the university is to promote human flourishing by helping each of you become enhanced versions of yourselves, more skilled, more thoughtful, more knowledgeable, more socially conscious, and most importantly, more empowered to contribute to your communities than you were when you started your university studies. By receiving your degree and diploma today, you have all demonstrated your own human flourishing as a person. Of course, that project of self-enhancement doesn't stop here. You're all going to continue to flourish as individuals as you go off to pursue your careers or future studies. And we here at the University of Guelph-Humber look forward to hearing about and indeed boasting about your accomplishments. Though human flourishing is always a work in progress, today is a good day to take stock, to reflect, and to focus on what you've accomplished up to now. For each of you in the class of 2022, this is a significant juncture in your lives, which we are here to honor and applaud. So enjoy the ceremony today, and I hope you have a wonderful time afterwards celebrating this achievement with your family and friends. Thank you, and I now ask Dr. Mary Ann Chambers, Chancellor of the University of Guelph, to come up and also say some greeting remarks, and then she'll be followed by Dr. Gina Antonacci, who's Senior Vice President at Humber ITAL.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here today with all of you as we celebrate the journey of the amazing graduates from the University of Guelph-Humber, an incredible partnership between two great institutions, the University of Guelph and the Humber College Institute of Technology and Advanced Learning. My name is Mary Ann Chambers. Last week, I was installed as the Chancellor of the University of Guelph. Thank you. But that does not describe who I am, only the latest stop on my own journey. I am a daughter of the Caribbean island of Jamaica. Almost 46 years ago, my husband Chris and I chose Canada to be our home, the place to raise our two young sons. I made a commitment then, as I do now, that we would be good for Canada and Canada would be good for us. I see that as entirely consistent with the University of Guelph's commitment to improve life. The scope of that, the needs, and the opportunities are limitless. They are local and they are global. And they are as equally relevant to you as University of Guelph-Humber graduates as they are to the graduates in Guelph or Ridgetown, and indeed to every one of us in this room today. Consistent with the objects and purposes of the University of Guelph Act of 1964 being the intellectual, social, moral, and physical development of its members and the betterment of society, the university also applies a definition of sustainability adopted from one established in 1987 by the World Commission on Environment and Development, which states, sustainability means meeting the needs of today's generation without compromising the needs of future generations. At its broadest scope, it encompasses economy, society, and environment. We're designed to be social beings. We were not created to live in isolation of each other. It should not require a crisis for us to recognize that we are essential to the well-being of each other. Whether the program of study that you chose to pursue has been kinesiology, media studies, business, family and community social services, early childhood studies, justice, or psychology, you have crucial roles to play in addressing issues that are essential to the quality of life we all seek to enjoy. Matters of such magnitude, with their broad implications and consequences, call for the attention of the brightest minds from every academic discipline and every career path you might choose. If we imagine the various ways that we might define quality of life as human beings, it becomes obvious that there are connections, collaborations, and partnerships required everywhere. Graduates, you are building upon a foundation established by high achievers from every college of the University of Guelph and every part of Humber College. I hope you have a sense of what is possible. I want you to aspire to greatness. Most of all, I want you to make your lives matter, because our world truly needs you to do that. The world should be a better place because you have lived. As you embrace the pleasure and satisfaction of these moments and look with optimism and courage towards the next chapters in your lives, I wish you continued success. And I ask that you remember how you have gotten to this point. I am thinking not about how hard you have worked, really, but about those who have cared so much about you. Many of them in this room. So much about you, and have often made significant sacrifices to enable you to dream big and hopefully to improve life for yourselves and for others. This would be a good time for you to stand and applaud those who have supported you along the way. Thank you. We must always remember that we accomplish very little on our own. So remain close to the University of Guelph-Humber and the University of Guelph. These will always be your alma maters. Be very proud of that.
Good afternoon. Chancellor Chambers, members of the Platform Party, honored guests, faculty and staff, family and friends, and especially our graduates. It is my pleasure to bring greetings from Humber College to the University of Guelph-Humber graduating class of 2022. You know, I've been a part of many convocation ceremonies in many different roles, as an administrator, as a faculty member, as a parent, and as a graduate. And each ceremony offers that same pride of achievement, the joy of success, and the excitement for the new beginnings and the possibilities that await all of you, the graduates. And to you, the graduates, you did it. And you are graduating with 2 credentials and the strengths and benefits of both a college education and a university education. You've worked hard, persevered through challenges that none of us could have predicted. And as a result, you're better poised than any other graduating class to enter a world of work that is different from the world of work that was in place when you began your studies. And as Chancellor Chambers has said, the world needs you now more than ever. We need you to continue to be confident and courageous as you step into a future that will present uncertainties and challenges, but far more opportunities for growth and innovation. I hope that you will continue to use the skills that you have learned as a student and as a scholar. Think critically, continue to question and challenge. We also know that as a University of Guelph-Humber student, you have been part of a highly diverse and inclusive institution. Continue to embrace diversity in all its forms as you move forward. And finally, and this part is really important, reach back. Use your privilege to support and empower those who will come after you. You leave here today with the ability to make a difference in the world, for yourself and for others. We are very proud of all that you have achieved. You have proven that you can do remarkable things, and we can't wait to see what you do next. Good luck and congratulations, graduating class of 2022.
Good afternoon. My name is Byron Sheldrick, and I have the honor and privilege to serve as the Dean of the College of Social and Applied Human Sciences at the University of Guelph. This afternoon, it is my great pleasure to introduce today's convocation speaker, Dr. Laylee Snook. Dr. Laylee Snook has been teaching full-time in the Kinesiology program at the University of Guelph-Humber since the fall of 2018, following the completion of her doctorate in physiology from the University of Guelph. Prior to commencing her PhD, Laylee was a research assistant and managed various research labs in Regina, France, and Guelph in the areas of protein biochemistry and physiology, leading to over 30 publications. This year, Laylee was awarded the Outstanding Mentorship Award, nominated by the graduating kinesiology students in recognition of her dedication to teaching and her support and mentorship throughout their coursework and research projects. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Laylee Snook.
Thank you. Chancellor Chambers, Senior Vice President Antonacci, Dean Sheldrick, Associate Vice Provost Bregas, members of the Platform Party, family, guests, and most importantly, graduates. Welcome to your convocation. It is such an honor to be able to speak to you on such an important day. Kin students, surprise, you haven't heard the last of me yet. One last time. Graduates, you have pivoted, you have been flexible, you adapted, and you persevered. Despite spending more of your undergraduate degree disrupted by the pandemic than not. That is no small feat. Take a moment to toe tap, elbow bump, or whatever COVID-friendly version of a high five you are comfortable with, and congratulate your neighbor. Today is a really big day. You are the reason that you are here, and you deserve this celebration. It would be impossible to stand up here today and not talk about the impact of the pandemic on your undergraduate experience. However, I would like to focus on some positive aspects of the pandemic and leave you with 3 lessons that I have learned over the past several years. First, you are capable of great things. You have learned how to learn in a way that has never been done before. You have learned how to collaborate and engage with your classmates in a virtual world. Not to mention, you have incredible organization, time management, and prioritization skills. Picture this. It's a typical school day last year. I have 3 classes tomorrow. The first one's asynchronous. That's great. I can use that time to watch a pre-recorded lecture video. What platform was that on? I should probably bank some extra time in case there's learning activities embedded in the video. Okay, my next class is in person, on campus. Maybe I can do some of those learning activities for my first class while I'm on the bus to school. I better make sure that I don't have anything to prepare for that class. Okay, my next class is right after my second, but it's online but synchronous. I'll probably be a few minutes late because I have to find a quiet place on campus with a plug-in for my laptop. Oh, and I better not forget my noise-canceling headphones so I can hear the instructor. You are all superhero learners. Reflect on these moments, write them down, celebrate these successes and the lessons learned, and use them when you're faced with tough job or school interview questions. The second thing we've learned is the value of information and the danger of misinformation. I've talked about the importance of good sources and questioning the validity of information with my kinesiology students since their first year. But it occurred to me that this message is even more important for the media studies graduates in the audience. You are going to be the source of information. You may be the next news anchor, the next editor or content creator, much like the kin students who are going to be advising clients or students or companies about nutrition or exercise. You will be providing information to the masses. This is a huge responsibility. You owe it to yourselves and future stakeholders to question everything. We have taught you to be critical evaluators and independent thinkers. Use these skills for good. Whether you're creating content, whether you're spreading information, or simply if you're sharing a meme on social media. Ask yourself, is this from a reputable source? Can I fact check it? Who benefits if I post it? And more importantly, who made it harm? Finally, the most important lesson I have learned can be summed up in the words of Gary Vaynerchuk. Kindness always wins. When we make policies and decisions based on empathy, everyone benefits. When we are inclusive and accommodating, everyone benefits. Whether we're in the middle of a global pandemic or on an ordinary Monday afternoon, everyone around you is dealing with something that you know nothing about. If you lead with your heart and good intentions, everyone benefits. I'd like to end my speech today with a quote that resonated with me as I was finishing my PhD dissertation. I took a very non-traditional and circuitous route to my doctorate and ultimately to my teaching career. And this quote sums up how I felt as those last pieces were falling into place. The quote is from a Douglas Adams book called The Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul. And it states, "I may not have gone where I intended to go, but I think I've ended up where I needed to be." I know many of you are headed out to postgraduate programs. Many of you have accepted your first full-time jobs, and many of you are taking a year to figure it out. For some of you, this might be exactly the path you mapped out when you started your degree at the University of Guelph-Humber. For others, this next step might be a completely different route from the one you first imagined. Maybe an unexpected course caught your attention and changed your plans, or your field placement experience set you off in a completely different direction. Regardless of which path you are on, embrace the connections that you have made and the experiences you will have, because whether or not you are going where you expected to go, I am certain that you're going where you need to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Layli, for those very inspiring words. Graduands, the moment has arrived. Will the graduating class please rise? Chancellor Chambers, I have the honor to present to you these scholars who have fulfilled the statutory requirements laid down by the Senate of the University of Guelph that they may be admitted to their various and several degrees with all of the rights, privileges, and obligations appertaining thereto.
By virtue of the authority vested in me and in the University of Guelph, I hereby accept you for admission to your various and several degrees with all of the rights, privileges, and obligations appertaining thereto.
Senior Vice President Antonacci, I have the honor to present to you these scholars who have fulfilled the academic requirements of Humber Institute of Technology and Advanced Learning in their respective programs, that they may be admitted to their various and several diplomas with all of the rights, privileges, and obligations appertaining thereto.
I admit you to your various and several Humber Institute of Technology and Advanced Learning diplomas with all the rights, privileges, and obligations appertaining thereto.
Will members of the graduating class please be seated? There will be two groups of students graduating this afternoon. I would ask that you withhold your applause until the end of each group to ensure that each student's name can be heard clearly. At the end of each group, we will expect some truly thunderous applause from friends and family. Chancellor Chambers and Senior Vice President Antonacci, I have the honor to present to you these scholars from the University of Guelph-Humber that they may be admitted to the degree of Bachelor of Applied Science, Kinesiology Honors, and to the Diploma in Fitness and Health Promotion. Nikki Agostino, with distinction. Philip Albino. Alyssa Alcantara, with distinction. Sabrina Algieri. Anime Magdalena Nitura Alonso, with distinction. Joshua Amonate Howie. Nicholas Argao. Nicholas Asaf. David Alexander Babando. Nicole Ballin, with distinction. Eric Batterau. Ariel Aaron Bernstein, with distinction. Marcus Daniel Biasotti, with distinction. Isabel Biasoni, with distinction. Coralanne Boyce Reeve. Angeli David Brown Mercurius. Kaylee Bush, with distinction. Andrew Kapukau, with distinction. Jessie Faith Paulina Carnavali. Erica Castillo. Monica Cieslak. Alessia Cocozoli. Rolton Cuello, with distinction. Melina Asunta Colalilo, with distinction. Nicholas William Colasante, with distinction. Isaiah Emmanuel Christopher Colley. Sean Corey, with distinction. Nicholas Cosenza, with distinction. Haley Alexis Kramer, with distinction. Gabriella Irene Cudini. Desiree Elise De Silva. Lydia Daigle, with distinction. Jordan Darius DeCuna. Addison De La Cruz, with distinction. John De Silva, with distinction. Destiny Nancy Desmond Stewart. Lainey Catherine Diel, with distinction. Gurinder Kaur Denoa. Trung Kien Du, with distinction. Justin Roderick Doncaster, with distinction. Brandon Michael Doré. Charmaine Anne-Rose Druken. Elaine Joyce Edora, with distinction. Emmanuel Josiah Ellis. Rachel Ermita. Charmaine Perez Fabian, with distinction. Aliza Fatima. Abigail Mackenzie Fencott. Jessica Fernandez. Olivia Erin Foley, with distinction. Manog Gamero Nobre. Ariel Gavronsky, with distinction. Emma Genova, with distinction. Michaela Gessis, with distinction. Anjali Gadiwala. Morgan Green, with distinction. Julia Ann Hagg, with distinction. Lucas Quinton Higgs, with distinction. Kaylee Alexis Hiscox, with distinction. Anir Ibrahim. Talene Marie Iskender, with distinction. Javeria Javed. Franz Javines. Patricia Faustino Juanillo. Adeline Kaiser. Masood Kamal, with distinction. Max Edward Kawasaki Rice, with distinction. Allison Bailey Kenyon. Hana Khan. Matthew Khan, with distinction. Ashwini Kamraj, with distinction. Jennifer Cohen, with distinction. Ria Katari, with distinction. Mary Kumi, with distinction. Trayvon Antwain Lampart. Daniel Kumasi Laria. Dana Cadence Licorice, with distinction. Simway Lin. Jessica Catherine McPherson. David Mador, with distinction. Joshua Dean Mahabir. Erica Malascalza, with distinction and the Vice Provost Award winner. Luke Mirando, with distinction. Sarah Mariano. Sarah Santina McManus, with distinction. Ivana Milik. Nicole Dawn Gunning Minkovich, with distinction. Shamila Mirza. Lance Montalvo. Courtney Ann Nadeau, with distinction. Luis Gerardo Nieves, with distinction. Hans Benedict Kappas Noble, with distinction. Gabriela Nadia Noche, with distinction. Rodrigo Gonzalo Noriega Mastanza. Callista O'Brien. Sapna Padiyar, with distinction. Prashant Patel. Ananya Patak, with distinction. Hugh Min Tron Phan, with distinction. McKenna Piercy, with distinction. Michael Joseph Pakarchuk, with distinction. Vanessa Janet Pilgrim, with distinction. Nicholas Gerard Peretta. Allison Patricia Shaw Price. Daniel Prudent. Melanie Raymond. Zoe Rolfe. Cameron Elise Ross, with distinction. Monica Salib. Sabrina Melissa Silva. Kirandeep Kaur Singh. Michael Anthony Sinopoli, with distinction. Miguel Hernando Solano, with distinction. Celine Sanza. Manit Kaur Sran, with distinction. Mackenzie Emily Stewart. Lynette Stewart, with distinction. Morgan Samantha Sturm, with distinction. Adriana Tomasic, with distinction. Stephanie Trasvina Pina, with distinction. Viviana Trasvina Pina, with distinction. Allison May Tuvita, with distinction. Justin Valdez. Alexis Andres Vasquez Goldsworthy, with distinction. Orinder Singh Virk. Brittany Wall, with distinction. Caden Watton, with distinction. Odisho Yagub. Sinichi Hei Yao, with distinction. Lexi Abigail Zamora Souza. And that is the class of 2022 for kinesiology. Chancellor Chambers and Senior Vice President Antonacci, I have the honor to present to you these scholars from the University of Guelph-Humber that they may be admitted to the degree of Bachelor of Applied Arts, Media Studies Honors, and to the Diploma in Media Communications. Feke Amadou, with distinction. Ryan Patrick Allen Hallam, with distinction. Joshua John Andrade. Natasha Nirvani Aznani, with distinction. Cynthia All. Gursimran Bamra, with distinction. Zachary Batista, with distinction. Romina Adriana Barbieri, with distinction. Trofina Bhatti, with distinction. Zachary Buttivant, with distinction. Samantha Jennifer Cardona, with distinction. Olivia Marie Casali, with distinction. Ashley Marie Cave, with distinction. Tiana Cavoto, with distinction. Jonina Charles. Tanny Chu, with distinction. Alexander Gino Shanfarani, with distinction. Brianne Elizabeth Bernice Clark, with distinction. Katia Colucci, with distinction. Nicole DeCunha, with distinction. Edon Deitch. Andrea Emily Del Bello, with distinction and the Vice Provost Award winner. Kalia Carissa D'Souza Perry. Samantha Jane Decker. Bianca Villia De Felice. Vanessa Allison DiStefano, with distinction. Juliana Alessandra Donia, with distinction. Cassandra Doria, with distinction. Alexander Mackenzie Droog. Odunayo Martins Esho, with distinction. Brianna Fee, with distinction. Braden Michael Ferguson. Nicole Ferrari. Ashley Emma Gallant, with distinction. Emily Garapi, with distinction. Maria Leanne Herente. Sydney Marie Gibbs. Adam Gomes. Stephanie Carolyn Gomes, with distinction. Christina Gravina, with distinction. Benjamin Thomas Gundrum. Yuki Wynn. Dante Hilton. Saif Ismail. Aliyah Gerard. Marta Kawa, with distinction. Saeed Bassem Kanfar. Ishanpal Singh Kosa. Alexa Knapp, with distinction. Adina Kojacaro. Evan Kolar. Julian LaMonica. Patrick John Henry Lawler. Anson Yu Sum Lee. Jordan Alexander Michael Levy, with distinction. Jacob Anthony Leotine. Jessica Licorice. Jonathan Lasalento. Sneji Lotia, with distinction. Erica Ann Lombardo. Carissa Hope McDonald, with distinction. Ava Mangoni, with distinction. Marissa Mackenzie Marantetti. Anita Christina Marino. Yasmin Marquis. Jasleen Matu, with distinction. Scott Arthur McMulkin. Kyle Jacob Mopus. Tiandre Anthony Myrie, with distinction. Nicholas Luigi Neri. Jerry Ng. Christine Nguyen, with distinction. Clara Nerona, with distinction. Mark Olson. Oluwalanumi Adesol Oluokun, with distinction. Crystal Vanessa Ordonez Lopez. Michaela Otogali, with distinction. Nicole Panacci. Farron Beata Pangisban. Emily Pantuzzo. Nisha Jasmine Parhar, with distinction. Abigail Rose Panetta, with distinction. Michael Leonardo Pietrozella, with distinction. Nathan Pratacante, with distinction. Robin Joy Raimundo Kiambao. Hania Rafiq, with distinction. Noreen Rahman. Marika Ramcharan, with distinction. Gabrielle Rana, with distinction. Madeline Marie Sierra Raposo, with distinction. Nadia Reed. Madeline Ricafort. David Lee Tratner Roman, with distinction. Jagdeep Kaur Saroya, with distinction. Cameron Scott, with distinction. John Sakara. Jasmine Salander, with distinction. Ariana Patricia Singh, with distinction. Nicholas Leon Skyba, with distinction. Alexandra Stathopoulos, with distinction. Michaela Tanalia, with distinction. Owen Thompson. Phoebe Thompson, with distinction. Yeah. Kevin Tran. Nicholas Alessandro Varelli. Holly Villarol. Caleb Vincent. Hira Wahid. Kayla Wennerstrom, with distinction. Mackenzie Winch. Tyler Wong, with distinction. Nicholas Yanakis. Abigail Joy Zalewski, with distinction. And that is the Media Studies class of 2022. Chancellor Chambers and Senior Vice President Antonacci, I would ask that you confer the various and several degrees and diplomas on the graduates listed in the program but unable to be present at this ceremony.
By virtue of the authority vested in me and in the University of Guelph, I confer the various and several degrees in absentia on the graduates not present.
By virtue of the authority vested in me, I confer the various and several diplomas in absentia on the graduates not present today.
Following convocation, a reception will be held for our new alumni and their guests in the foyer. This is an opportunity to congratulate our new members of the alumni family, and we hope that you can join us. In a moment, the platform will process out of the hall. We ask that you rise, if you are able, for the recession and remain at your seats until the platform has left the room. And now, as is our tradition, the final word is from our Chancellor.
Convocation is dismissed.